And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to another OSR Tabletop with myself, Richard GM Bloodworth. And today I am joined by Erik Tenkar from Tenkar's Tavern and Don Semora from Wizard Tower Games. So, really nice to have you both on here. I'm pretty sure it's the first time. I know it's the first time Don has been on my channel, but I think, Erik, I've been on yours before, but I don't think you've ever been on mine.
No, this might be the first opportunity.
Broadcasting around. So, so it's great to have you both here. We've had many interactions over the years and everything. I know in a comment that I made on Facebook, because people were talking about, hey, we're so excited to meet all of these people, at the Philadelphia Game Expo, and I was like, yeah, everybody but Erik, because I've already met Erik.
I already know him.
I tried to put that pause in there for, you can't do it in text, the same way. I was like, yeah. But everybody but Erik, I mean, there's at least one person that I'm sure we don't want to really cross paths with, but I'm very diplomatic in person, and I try not to be as so much of an asshole, but sometimes it can't be helped. But anyway, so the reason why, actually two reasons why I'm doing this. One was kind of a kind of tongue-in-cheek, issue, because another YouTuber out there was like, oh, these old guys in the OSR, they never go on each other's shows. It's like they never support each other. They never. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, that makes no sense. And listen, honestly, the old guys in the OSR are often so busy bringing in guests that are creative, like Jeff Talanian. We're going to have him on Wednesday night. Last week we had Bill Barsh. That it's like, we're always trying to push the people, the creatives, the OSR in general. That sometimes we miss each other, but then again, each other has their own channels to worry about too.
Right. Yeah. I was like, and I mentioned it to a lot of people. I was like, I like follow, like I'm subscribed to like 300 channels. It's like, I can't possibly keep up with everyone that is, putting out stuff, and it's great stuff, but it might take me 2 weeks to get to it, before I kind of trickle down through, and then somebody will come out with something else, and it's like, all right, well, let's see what his take is, and just trying to keep up with the things that we really kind of focus on, or try to focus on. And that's going to be one of my questions, with the OSR. But as you both probably know, I'm going to have Joseph Block on tomorrow, and that was another one that I was like, hoping to line up with, because, I'm a big Greyhawk fan, and, and I'm a fan of his stuff too. And he has stuff currently in Kickstarter as well. So it's like, there's so much going on in the OSR and in the independent, gaming space, that it's impossible to, keep up with it all. But yeah, the idea that we don't meet up with each other and talk with each other and put each other on each other's shows and everything was just crazy. I was like, that's weird, so
well, it follows a certain rhetoric.
Go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying it follows a certain rhetoric out there. Is what it does.
Yeah. It's that pushing of a myth. Yeah. All right. And it's just another element of the myth, right? It's like, oh, we're so repulsive, we don't even get along with each other, kind of idea that they try to work, right? It's like it's crazy, and then I saw another one where they were talking about, because I've been doing Shadow Dark now recently, and and someone came out and was like, yeah, well, only young people are running Shadow Dark. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah. It's just further trying to, push the OSR away from all the stuff that, it's kind of collectively doing. And we'll get to your definition of the OSR, but I certainly want to let you guys have the opportunity to talk about your definition of the OSR as well. I mean.
No,
So,
that,
and then you have a project coming up, and I certainly want to give you both an opportunity to talk about that. So that was the other reason why. I like
okay.
to try to hit the iron when it's hot, and the fact that you guys are currently working on something that I figured let's get that out there as well. So without further ado, I will let you both introduce yourself since I've been rambling. So we'll start with Erik on top. Go right ahead, Erik.
Folks, if you don't know who I am,
Hmm.
and obviously there are some people who probably don't, you either love me or you hate me. I am Erik Tenkar. It says OSR bartender. I run the Tavern, whether it's on YouTube or Tenkar's Tavern blog, the Discord server, Facebook group, MeWe group. And listen, I'm a big fan of the OSR. The OSR is what's kept me in gaming. And I think the OSR comes in a lot of different flavors. So it's a very large community. I don't think it's exclusionary, or I don't think it should be. But I'm just happy to. I know people like Rich and people like Don, and we all bring something different to this community. And I think that's really what makes things like tonight's show so special, because you got three different perspectives on one thing. And anybody who thinks that, well, the OSR is this, you're probably wrong. It's probably this.
Yeah.
So, Don, your ball.
Well, I'm Don Semora. I'm the owner of Wizard Tower Games. We publish OSR product and also 5e product, I know, but we do both. As far as the OSR with me, I think Erik put it in perspective there. I think the OSR is not I don't think it can be pigeonholed like a lot of people try to do. It's not an age group. I know a lot of people who are in their 20s and 30s who love to play, 1E content, things like Beck Me, Holmes, that type of thing. So I think the thing that really, and this is something that I think the OSR gets a fault to that they shouldn't, and that is the OSR I think is far more welcoming than what people think. Mm-hmm. Richard, you talked earlier about people having everybody on their shows. The majority of shows I've been on have been people who run the run based off the OSR, like you and Erik and Tom Verrault and other people. So yeah, far more welcoming than people think, far more expansive than people think also.
Yeah, and since you mentioned Tom, I'll mention Tom as well. Tom is a Star Frontiers guy, which is another misconception of the OSR, in that people think OSR is everything is a D&D derivative, and
right.
And that's a mistake as well. And it's also not just a TSR derivative, because I mean, Tunnels and Trolls is just as much an OSR as AD&D First Edition, or even OD&D, and Traveler is an OSR. It's like old school. It's old school. Anything that was, back, in the 70s or 80s, regardless of genre or game system or whatever, I personally consider to be old OSR, because they all had a very common feel to them, if you will, like they were just, a little grittier, maybe a little bit, a little bit more complicated or complex compared to, more modern games. And even amongst themselves, though, I mean, Beck Me was not complex at all.
No.
But it was, it was still very much a game of its era, as far as its like tone and its, just its feel to it. You would certainly put it in that older school, category than a game that is just as simple, today. You'd still feel the difference between the two. So, so I think that it's much more expansive than people, give it credit for. And it's absolutely much more inclusive than people give it credit for as well. And it's, I think it's more so, in some circumstances, more of a jealousy that, these games, people have been playing some of these games for, 40 or 50 years. And the more modern games, they don't have that legacy behind them yet. I mean, maybe 40 years from now, people will still be running 5e, and then it will be feeling that same kind of ire, from that generation will be looking at it and saying, hey, you know what, this is too old school, and
I think it's also it's a different way that people play games. And I think it's part of it is the way people socially do things now. Things like with phones and things, everybody wants the newest thing. Even though they got something perfectly well that works great. I think companies like Hasbro learned that, like before, you had, Holmes and Beckme and, first edition AD&D, and those kind of stayed for several years. Now they're kind of changing things up constantly, always adding, always making things new. And
Right.
I think they're trying to fall into that I want the latest flavor mentality, where we tend to go, well, I don't want to play 5e because I have something that works that I like. I don't care if
Right.
it is 40 years old.
Yeah.
So it's just a marketing thing also, I think a lot of.
Yeah, it's a hope of, I think it's a hope of capturing the lightning again, and I mean, their own sales numbers show it. It's like once you've gotten the core 3 rule books, everything else is, supplemental, which is
Right.
really what it's designed to be. And they're trying to make supplement material as go-to as the core, and it just doesn't work that way.
But they're also, if you notice the way they do the supplemental material, like instead of buying, as an example, a World of Greyhawk box set or a Forgotten Realms box set, and you got everything you need in there. Now they don't put out content like that. They have a series of 10 or 15 books that cover one, one world setting, or they try to break it down by city and all this, and they try to micro market
Yeah.
D&D, and I don't think that, and I think you're right, the sales numbers show that doesn't work really well.
Well, and then the other thing is too, for something that they have such disdain for, which is older gaming, Forgotten Realms was brought to us at the end of the 1E, 2E transition, which is the default setting for 5E. They brought back Ravenloft. They brought back Spelljammer, but not really. They shoved it into Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
But they don't. All these things that they claim were, I don't know, verboten or you shouldn't be thinking about, they just I don't know, add modern sensibilities to it, and then
Right.
repackage it as here's something new. And to me, it shows that the current IP holders, the current creators that have the D&D trademark, lack the imagination, or at least lack the confidence in their creatives to come out with something new that will have the staying power of the Forgotten Realms, or even Greyhawk. They're bringing Greyhawk
Absolutely.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also, it's also like if they create something new, they own it. And I don't think that they want to necessarily own it, because they've seen themselves, and you saw this with Spelljammer, and you saw the Hattersy. They tried to blame that on older, they tried to blame it on TSR. Oh no, we took that wasn't in the original. That was something that they inserted, and they luckily they were able to pull it and change it digitally before the hardbacks came out with it permanently printed in there. Although I think some probably slipped through. Some people probably have like the deities and demigods first printing, equivalent of that out there, where it's going to be worth $200, while everything else is worth, $40. And so I don't think they want to own the responsibility of creating something that they have to backtrack on. And so it's much easier to blame it on a previous generation.
Oh, well, we didn't know this was in Greyhawk, but we included the DMG. But wait. the Slavers series was in Greyhawk.
Yeah.
Oh, the homage and all that. We got to just scrape that off the map. Let's make that something different.
Yeah. So it's a, it's a thing that, again, the OSR gets blamed for it, and they'll be like, oh, you see, they were willing to accept this, or they were fully endorsed this, meanwhile, it's something that they keep on overhyping as an issue. Like, I don't think when I played, I'm sure you both were probably the same. We just played Dungeons and Dragons. We just play. We were probably teenagers. We were probably all teenagers when we first started, and we were just playing a freaking game. We weren't thinking about all of these other things that the social and political ramifications.
And that's the thing. What people don't realize is, and I'll speak from my perspective. When I was younger, I started playing D&D at 10 years old. And through 10, 11, 12, through my teens, I can guarantee you I didn't care who wanted to play. Did you want to play? I mean, we just cared about, did you want to play D&D? That's all we cared about. We didn't care male, female, Mexican, Asian, black, white. Who cares? Are you want to play D&D? So.
Yeah, when I hear those stories about, gaming back in the late 70s, early 80s was all white males. Well, it depends on your perspective. If you were gaming back then, where you lived. Now, I lived in 2 different places at the time. I spent my summers in the Poconos, and my gaming group there the town was 98%, white. So, I played with white males, occasionally one of the girls from the neighborhood. But when I played in Queens, New York, Filipino, black, Chinese, Asian, Jewish, Catholic. We had everything and everybody because New York was a melting pot and there was no exclusionary. We get a girl to play, which we did in high school. We got 2 of them to come over. It was a big win for us. We weren't excluding women. We weren't like the He-Man Women Haters Club for the Little Rascals. We were, please join us. We come on. It's kind of cool, maybe.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I know we were the same way. It's like we had a very diverse. I was on Long Island, New York, which is not as diverse as Queens, even back in the 70s, but still managed to have an Indian, an Asian, a Hispanic, and myself, a mixed mutt, and tried to get girls to join in. One of the players' sisters, which was roughly our age or whatever, but we just would have been welcome, just couldn't. None of them wanted to. It wasn't, that's nerdy stuff. That's not, it's not what they look to do.
And at that age, in general, you hang out with your same gender, right? If you're boys hang out with boys and girls hang out with girls, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were D&D groups that were all girl groups at the time, because that's generally who you socialized with,
right?
If you try, when we tried to get girls into our group, but that was probably because we wanted to date the girls, and this was a way to be around them. But it isn't. It's a bit different today. You do see, social groups that are more of a mixed gender group than you did back when we were kids. But even my niece, she hangs out with girls. She's not hanging out. She's 13. She's hanging out with other girls. If she had a D&D group, I'd expect it to be a bunch of girls, just because of who she's hanging out with.
Well, I always tell people, if there's an argument that I have that can counter all of this, is anybody who says we're full of beans, I tell them, go to Google and do this very simple search term. Type in Dungeons and Dragons high school clubs in the 1980s, and then click on images. And it'll show all the class photos of the D&D clubs in high schools, and you will see how diverse D&D really was in the 80s, at least in high schools. There's girl groups, there's groups that are mostly girls, a couple of guys, girls that are mostly black, groups that are mostly black, mostly Asian. I mean, it's all over the map with people. And that's why I tell people all the time that if you want to go ahead and spew it, just Google it and look at the images. That kind of settles it right there.
Yeah, that's a good. I've never heard that before. So
I like that.
That is a great idea to spread the news. So let's see. Let's get back to let's see where we were going to go. So let's see. So we kind of so when you both first started, I mean, what was your first game system that you got into?
All right. For me, it was AD&D. It was I believe it was 6th grade. I was 12. It was during Christmas break. My friend Kenny ran me through a one-on-one session of AD&D through some dungeon he drew up. And I was killing skeletons, and it was amazing. And my father's name was Cyrus, after Cyrus Vance. I was a hell of a nerd, is all I'm going to say. I named him after the Secretary of State.
Right.
God knows why. And my mother and father for my birthday in July got me the Player's Handbook, the DMG, and a set of high quality dice. And that was it. I was done.
Right.
No coming back. All in. So.
And Don?
It was 1977, and my mom bought me a basic box set for Christmas, and she thought it was a coloring book set because I was really into art.
Oh.
Yep. And I opened it up, had no interest in it, let my buddy Lance borrow it because he wanted to borrow it, check it out. And like 2 days later at school, he was like, Don, I read this. This is a game. You can cast spells. You can fight monsters. And I was like, what? He's like, come over to my house on Friday. So I went over to his house and we gamed, I think, God, right after dinner until wee hours of the morning. And that was it. That was it. Game over for me. Yeah. And I played that box set probably for a year, and then got my Dungeon Master's Guide, the DMG, for Advanced D&D, and it just exponentially got worse from there.
Yeah. So I began with originally I thought I began with the Holmes edition, and we might have only played that for like a month or so. It wasn't even mine. It was my friend. I actually just recently reached out to him and said, "Hey, this is going to be a weird question, but what was the edition of Dungeons and Dragons that you introduced us to?" And I haven't spoken to him in quite a while, So I mean, this is my best friend from 1978, and he was like, he says, I'm pretty sure we really started playing with AD&D First Edition when it first came out, So he says, I think I had the blue book, and then I got that. Now my first was the Mold Bay box set was my first that I purchased, but that was it. I mean, and I can still remember playing it for the first time at his house. I remember having the big white paper that we would draw the map on, and it wasn't even graph paper. It was just
like
big
butcher
paper.
It
was like butcher paper. Yeah, it was like butcher paper on there, and I was playing a lizard man fighter at one point named Dat. All right, from the initials of Trampier's and his lizard man, and he was like, yeah, you could play a lizard man fighter. You just play whatever you want. And I remember how we used to plod through like 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot with the poles and the spikes and the this and that. I mean, every little bit of gear we felt that we must have in order just to survive this thing. And we went through characters like crazy, during those years too. I mean, it was always brutal, it was like, because we were always first level. If you rolled a 1, you had 1 hit point, it wasn't doing any of those other things. And it just blossomed from there. I mean, we went into, we didn't have a go-to game. We started running different things, and each of us were game masters.
Yep.
And we kind of divvied it up, so
right.
He was the one running AD&D. I ended up doing. I ended up running Twilight 2000 and Villains and Vigilantes. Another once in a while Bushido was something else that I was running at the time. I mean, we mixed it up like crazy. Another one was running James Bond all the time. I mean, we went through almost every one of those movie boxes, during the whole time. So it was a time probably very much different than now, where I think people kind of play one game system and stick with it. And it was much, much more diverse in gameplay back then as well.
Definitely. Now, now I'm going to throw a question out. We're all about the same age. We're all like mid-50s. When I was younger, when I was in my teens and my 20s, I could grab a game system, whether it was like Pace Setters, Time Master, and move over to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, grab the Star Trek game from FASA, grab Twilight 2000, Traveler, RuneQuest. I could switch back and forth. You gave me a game system. Bushido, I had trouble grokking, but generally speaking, if you gave me a game system, I'd learn it in a weekend, and we were running with it. And now in my 50s, I'm like, I want it to be something that I already kind of know. And like, if it's D20, all the OSR stuff is very familiar. I can even delve into, like, I guess, current Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I can probably delve into basic RPG because I ran Call of Cthulhu and RuneQuest. But I'm not. You give me Fate, and I look at Fate, and I go, "Yeah, I can't. I don't get it," because I seem to have already learned the systems that I can learn, and I can learn derivatives, but I can't learn an all new, semi-complicated system anymore. I don't know. What about you guys?
Oh, with me, I'm cursed. I have to learn them because I publish. And you have to have an understanding of the new game systems out there, what's currently popular. But that is actually a very small portion of my gaming. My main gaming is D&D, which is AD&D 1E, or I play my own system that we're producing. So those are my two go-to systems that I play. But I see exactly what you're saying. I mean, so many new systems are out there. Some of them are really complicated. Some of them are extremely rules heavy. Some are really rules light. It's just a matter of, I think it's going to be it's a hunt and peck on what you're going to play. But I'm not. If I didn't have to learn them, I wouldn't want to learn them. To be honest with you, I just want to stick with D&D, my AD&D first edition, and also my own system. That's what I want to stick with, or GURPS, because I was big in GURPS when I was younger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I pretty much when I look at I like looking at game systems. Right. And the only game system that I couldn't wrap my head around was Rollmaster. I was like, just making up a character. I mean, I spent close to like 3 hours, and I was like, I still had like 200 points to spend. I don't care anymore. I do not care anymore. And then I played it once, and just going through the combat system of it, where it's like, wait, I rolled this, and what, I have to look at 3 other charts?
Yes. All right. Your damage is 16C. Yeah. Go to the slashing chart. C criticals. Oh, look, you rolled a 66. Well, which isn't it shouldn't be one of the best, but 66 is one of the best. You lopped him off at the knee. I know this because I ran that, and I ran Space Master. When I only had a party of 2. I only had 2 people in my group for about a year in my 20s, and Space Master was a system that I can run that didn't require a larger group for my party to survive. But would I go back and run it now? Oh God, no. I look back and I already know. I was like, oh man, I was making some of that crap up along the way. I was winging stuff. I wasn't using all of it. I can see it now.
Yeah. So so I don't shy away from new systems, but I do shy away from ones that are ridiculously tedious. And that's certainly like, I know when we used to, when people say, oh, look at the carrying capacity of Villains and Vigilantes. I absolutely love that. I love the whole calculation that you had to do, just to come up with a carrying capacity, because it was probably like a 7-step process to figuring out what your carrying, and I loved it, and people will actually point to that. Some modern people will point to that and say, oh, well, that was a form of gatekeeping because you had to be like a mathematical genius. I was like, I wasn't a mathematical genius.
Right.
I just spent some time and read it. It's like, I think we were far more open to reading, back then, because we weren't tied to a screen all day. You know what I'm saying? It's like it was just a different time where we were much more, I don't want to say literate, but we're much more open to having to read a lot, because that was the activity, that was your leisurely activity when I was a kid. Maybe just because I was a nerd, but I'd spend vacations reading Lord of the Rings, all 3 novels, of Lord of the Rings during a 1-week vacation.
I'd be on vacation and I could read a book a day sometimes.
Yeah.
Fantasy, occasionally science fiction, but mostly fantasy. And then when I was like, got into the college and the job market, it was a book a week, because I'd rather read a book than sit down and watch TV. Maybe things have changed. Actually, I don't watch TV now anyway, but it was, books were very popular back then, and now you're reading them on a Kindle. There's a change.
Yeah, it's just a different experience. Thank you, St. Cuthbert. I like this one here though, Scott. So too many systems and derivatives these days. I don't have time to learn them. If I'd rather be playing something, and I could see that too. And I was at that point as well. That's why I passed on OSC. I was like, how many different variants of Dungeons and Dragons do I actually need? And I got to the point where it was like plus I bought everything that I was even semi interested in. I'd run out of room in my house. It's like, and wallet. So it's a I can definitely see where you can have too many. I'd like to have like one copy of something, for each thing. Like, not to have for Golden Glory, because that's the only 2E retro clone that I know of.
Right.
So having something like that is nice to have, but I certainly wouldn't need multiple copies of a second edition OSR, multiple game systems of it.
Now, as you get older, especially if you live in the city or someplace, you got limited space. It becomes, and I know a lot of collectors in the hobby. I know the people that are bidding at the auctions, and it's like, oh, geez, I'd love to have a mint condition Deities and Demigods first print. That's I got a beat up copy that I was lucky to get down the line. But these people collect, like, I don't know, Japanese versions of basic modules.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can even say that I come close to collecting is Tunnels and Trolls, because there's a finite amount of Tunnels and Trolls material out there, and I can collect it, and I can get a fairly good collection. My best piece is Tunnels and Trolls second printing, or second edition, really. Ken St. Andre's personal play copy signed by Ken.
Wow.
And I thought that was something to brag about until I talked to Bill Meinhardt, who was like, oh, yeah. And he flips through his catalog of what he has. I have Ken's first printing signed by Ken. Thank you, Bill. I don't want to hear anything else.
Well, he's going to be at Philadelphia Game Expo, so you can get him to sign it again. You can take a picture with him signing it again.
I've actually, I've communicated with our good Tunnels and Trolls creator, the Saint himself, for a number of years, and I've never actually got to meet him. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah,
he's a character.
Let's see. So Yeah, we will get to the project in a minute. So yeah, he wants to know about your latest project, and actually it's Eric, Don, and Tom is
Mhm.
working on something. I'll definitely bring you in on that. In a minute, let's see what else do we have. We might as well jump right to it. Uh, so new project, Blades and Sorcery RPG.
Mm-hmm.
So Eric, I'll let you take it away with that.
Blaze and Sorcery is going to be. We're working on it. Uh, I I was, and I call it a blessing. I was blessed to have the opportunity to create Swords and Wizardry Light, which basically took Swords and Wizardry White Box and put it down to 4 very tightly laid out pages that I could never have done the layout for. And after I did Light, Jane Spahn worked with me and we did Continual Light, which brought 3 levels up to 7. It's a very streamlined system. But with Matt Finch leaving Frog God Games, taking Swords and Wizardry with him, I wanted to get Swords and Wizardry Light back out. And if I was going to get it back out, it would have to be under a new title. But also, it gives me the opportunity now to stretch what was Swords and Wizardry Continual Light into what we're probably going to be calling Blaze and Sorcery Core. And it's going to be a lot fuller, but it's going to keep the same tropes of a D20 and a D6. So it's not going to be your bucket full of dice, but we're going and the light rules. If you have Swords and Wizardry Light, they're relayed out. We have a very good editor working on them right now, which Don will tell you about, I'm sure. But they're going to be the only thing that we're changing with that is I get to put gnomes in there because we got a little extra space, and I happen to be playing a gnome right now in Joe the Lawyer's 2E campaign. So I got a little special place for gnomes in my heart now. But we have a lot of plans for the core rules. A lot of plans. So so what happened with this was once I realized that I got to get this back out there, I actually have the copyright for the light rules. I spoke with Don, and then we spoke with Tom, and it's like, hey, listen, we can get this out pretty quickly because it's new layout, new art, and some clarity issues because maybe it wasn't the clearest it could be when you only have 4 pages to play with. But it's still going to play quick and easy in 3 levels and 4 classes. But once we get to core, we're going to be able to stretch our wings, stretch our toes, and do what I wasn't able to do prior. Because prior, I wasn't looking to compete with Swords and Wizardry. It was more taking those light rules and kind of giving them a stretch. But we've got a lot of plans that we can take this in different directions without losing that core tightness of the rules. So, and Don and Tom are 2 good friends and people that I can entrust with my RPG baby, because it kind of feels like that. You become possessive of this stuff, and it's like, oh, all right, yeah. And it didn't feel like that when I was like talking with Don, and the clarity came to me. I'm literally. This sounds stupid. I'm slicing cheese for Rachel and I to snack on one night, and in the middle of slicing the cheese, I go running over to my computer. The computer I'm sitting at, and I'm typing to Don, and Rachel's like, "Are you okay?" Yeah. I got it. I got to do it right away. I don't want to forget. It makes sense right now, and if I wait on this, maybe it won't make sense, but it makes good sense. And we've been hot on it ever since. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time. So, Don, you got you're filling some blanks there.
Well, first of all, I want to say that it is a honor for Eric to have asked me to help with this. I mean, the game is an awesome game. It was widely played. Had a lot of awesome feedback, and to be able to take it and to have a chance to get our hands onto it. My hands to be able to clarify the rules. We found some things that needed cleaned up, some clarifications, like Erik said, and then the editor on this will be somebody who definitely has some old school credentials, because this is going to be going to Tim Kask later on this week. And
Nice.
Tim Kask is going to be the one doing the editing on this game. And I reached out to Tim. I asked him. He was enthusiastic about it and agreed to do it. So, yeah. And then we're going to be doing Blaze and Sorcery Core. That's going to be basically a full-line role-playing game. So it's going to be keeping the 2 dice, like Erik said, but it's going to allow us to expand on classes, races, a lot of different things to make it more complete, for lack of a better term, large-scale RPG. That then lets us from there, which we won't get too much into, but it allows us to launch into other things. That'll be so.
I'll throw out one word: genres. That's
Genres, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But it should be a good fit for what we've been brainstorming.
Yeah.
And again, when I did Continual Light with James Bond, it had to be a certain length because, again, it couldn't be a direct competitor to Swords of Wizardry Complete or Core. And I don't think of it as a competitor because it's going to be using a streamlined version of the dice. The classes are going to be a bit more streamlined. There's going to be no percentiles even under charts. We're already working our way around that. But
if I can address something real quick, Erik.
Yeah.
A question has been asked down here: will there be sneak preview of Blaze and Sorcery? And I've also seen people go, will there be like a sneak peek release? The answer to that is no. And the reason why there won't be one released, a sneak peek, is because the modifying of the existing game went very quickly. We're actually done with it. We're at the point now where, as of tonight, I'll be adding just the final changes to send up to Erik and Tom to get their final approval. Once they approve it, it's going to go to Tim. Once Tim does the edits, it comes back to us. If they're approved, we're going to have this ready to go within probably 2 weeks after that. So probably by the end of June, this is going to be a ready-made, ready-to-go project in product.
So,
and then how's it going to be distributed? Like, is it going to be Kickstarted? Is it going to be...
You want me to, Erik?
Or it's ready to roll?
The way it's going to go is we're going to go ahead. We're going to be doing PDF and print. Wizard Tower is going to do the printing. PDF at this point, we're talking about finally opening up an RP or drive-through RPG account for downloadable PDF. But also we have the ability to have downloadable PDF on our website. So it'll be a mixture of drive-through RPG PDF only, and then PDF and print through the Wizard Tower Games shop.
Right.
Okay.
You can consider like Blades and Sorcery Light to kind of be your preview or your basic set. It's going to cover levels 1 through 3. It's going to have your 4 core classes. It may have a few extra spells that were left out initially because those spell lists were damn short because I had 4 pages. We're going to flesh it out with a few extra monsters. You're going to have a much fuller 3 levels, but don't expect Light to include things like equipment lists and all that stuff. That's going to be in the core. All right. The Light's still going to be something where you can take it, sit down at a game convention, and have the whole table roll out characters in 10 to 15 minutes, as Rich saw at ShireCon. That's that's the beautiful thing about those rules. And if you know the Swords of Wizardry Light rules, you're just going to get some more of that with Blaze and Sorcery Light. We're not limited to those 4 pages. So, now when it comes to the Light rules, which again are pretty much what's been out there in PDF, I believe we're looking at pay what you want for the Light rules. There's going to we're not Frog God Games. You're not going to get free print, booklets going out. It's going to. Me and Donna talked about it. We're going to price it at a good price point. But the core rules are going to be priced at what you would expect for a full game, and that's going to be a full game, but it's going to be a full game that you'll be comfortable having your your son or daughter or your niece and nephew playing with you, and reintroducing somebody who hasn't played in 20 years, and maybe bringing your father into the game and sitting him down with his grandkids, and not hitting him with something that he's like, I gotta learn how much. No, dude. Once you learn the basics and the two dice that you got to be able to differentiate between, you're good. We want to keep it. I think simple is too simple a word to use.
Right.
I don't think it's right, but we want to keep the intimidation factor down. And I think Swords and Wizardry Light and Continual Light were not intimidating games. They were games that you could grab and pick up and be able to run with, and we want to keep that factor going.
You want it accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Accessible, broadly accessible. One thing about print on, pay what you will. You do realize, I'm sure you know, on drive-through, you will not be in the gold rewards kind of thing.
Here's the thing, and I'll explain how that works. If you do pay what you want, any sales you make for $1 or more count toward the medal.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yes. But if it's less than, I'm not sure if it's less than $1 or less than 50 cents, it doesn't count. So
it's 20 cents. Like if you put up something under 20 or under 25 cents, then it won't count towards that at all.
So it will count if somebody if they pay toward it. So like Rob Conley with Black Marsh put that out for free, and he never got a medal count for it. And that thing is hugely popular. You can ask Rob how many downloads he's gotten. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But by the way, I don't think Don. I forgot to tell you this, Don. Rob owes me a setting for what would have been Continual Light. So Rob owes me a pocket setting. He brought it up. I didn't. Rob did. So
you're going to have to call that debt then.
Yes. So that's announced here first, folks. So Rob Conley's going to be doing a little.
And also, real quick, there was a question asked a moment ago by T. Taylor asking us if we're going to have either base races or if we're going to eventually add sub races such as Wood Elf, Wild Elf. As far as the basic version that we're getting ready to put out, no.
Right. The light rules, no.
No. But as far as the core rules, that's not off the table.
No.
I can't say that we're actively planning at this moment, but definitely things like that, because we get more into the core rules. That's when Tom's brain, my brain, and Eric's brain is all going to start doing all this creative vomiting, and we're going to start mixing it together and seeing what kind of gels in the middle. So,
I mean, one of the conceits of Blaze and Sorcery, or what was Swords and Wizardry Light, Continual Light, is that there's no experience points. Depending on how you want to pace it, you either pace it by adventures, which generally take more than one session, or you do it by sessions. And 2 sessions, you level to level 2. 3 additional sessions, you're at level 3. When you get to the core rules, specialized classes like Rangers and Paladins, which were in Continual Light, and they were basically a sentence each, building up the base classes, we're going to flesh them out a little bit more. But if you're playing one of the subclasses or additional classes that we're looking at to build off of, they take an additional session at each level to level up. So they will tend to lag behind about a level from the core classes. So they get their extra abilities, and that's balanced off by slower progress, essentially. But I think it's a decent balance. It worked very well with Continual Light. But like I said, we'll have more space, so we'll be able to give you more details as to what what you're getting for your additional playtime to level up.
So will you launch it with an online special game night on one of your channels? I think people would like to watch, like doing like a live play.
Okay,
like
to this date we have not discussed that, but I'll be honest with you, that actually sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So and I'm not saying it's gonna be the actual launch date, but we could certainly grab you and Tom for a Friday evening with the random party generator, because these knuckleheads are the ones that I've already participated in online games with. We've done live plays, and by the way, Rich, I think you'd understand this. I swore for years I would never participate in a live play. I'd never run one. I'd never host one, because the people that I hang out with, they're fun guys, but they're a bunch of assholes, and you just figure you're going to burn the channel down, which is what we expected. And then we did that with Shadow Dark, and it was the most watched live stream that we ever had, and it didn't fall into complete chaos. And then we did a second Shadow Dark, and I think we've done a third at this point. So unlike nearly a decade ago when Roll20 reached out to me and wanted me, before I was even doing videos, to do a video, I was writing about my sessions, and they were all excited. I went, well, if I use Roll20 to run a session, I'm going to have to cut out about 80% of the audio, because it's BSing and probably politically incorrect bullshit amongst my friends. And I don't use anything besides fog of war and a pointer. I don't even use tokens.
Right.
So they never responded to me after I said that.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But yeah, that's actually a very good idea. But I think if we're going to do that, we will probably wait for the core rules before we do that, because I think the core rules are going to be the much bigger launch. I'm very excited for what we got in store with that.
Agreed.
And as Scott said, they were great streams. Yeah, so I'll have to double check on those too. Like I said, they're following 300 different channels. Very easy.
When I was commuting, I would commute and listen to podcasts and YouTube channels to and from work. And I'd look forward to it. And now that I'm retired, I watch YouTube on my big TV, but I gotta limit the gaming stuff, because Rach has a tolerance.
Yeah.
But it's limited to, like, are we going to listen to the Irish chick, or are we going to listen to, Don has a new video, or Tom? Okay. But, unless she knows the person, she's usually like, do we have to watch Glicker again? I'm like, I like Glicker. I have to enjoy his stuff. She's like, yeah, but he bores me. I was like, all right.
You're lucky that your wife has any tolerance for it. My wife would not put up for it for a second. And my daughters are like mortified, and they're like, that is so nerdy. And my wife is like, my wife ages me when she gets upset, when I'm doing this. She'll be like, you're 70 years old and you're still playing games. So it's like, I'm 57. I'm nowhere near 70.
I'm not quite there yet, damn it.
So, but I mean, luckily they kind of leave me, they leave me to my own. This is my only vice. It's you can have much worse vices than this, I'm sure.
Oh my God. That was it when I met my wife Rach, and I explained what I did as a hobby. And I was gaming on Saturday nights with Fantasy Grounds, and Saturdays are like date nights. I'd be like, I'm already gonna cancel the game. I'm not gonna show up for the game. She's like, no, take me home to the Bronx. I'm like, what? No, take me home. You've got this hobby. You should do it. I'm like,
yeah.
Are you real? Are you hello? Are you? Is this really happening? So she goes to all the cons with me. I've only gone to one on my own, and the fact that she's retired now makes it a lot easier. And she likes going to. She likes gaming.
Nice.
But she enjoys the socializing aspect about it. And I think that we forget that gaming is much about sharing time with other people and socializing and catching up and making those bonds. The game is almost secondary to that, or I feel it is.
Oh yeah, like having dinner and in the bar, at the site or at the hotel in between and everything like that. Like, I'm really looking forward to like Thursday. Thursday before the whole thing kicks off. I'm talking about the Philadelphia Area Game Expo for the listeners there. I'm planning on getting there. Like, I like to get there like 3:00. I want to check into my room, and then I'm not running something until 7. So I fully anticipate to be, in that lobby, in that lounge area of that lobby there, just looking to see who comes in or whatever. I will, take my time, see people talk. Just really looking forward to that socialization, like you're saying, and it's going to be phenomenal. And actually that was like, so first question. So so Blades and Sorcery, you're running it at ShireCon?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. All right.
That's a given.
That's a given. Right. So at least I'll see it in September then. Minimally I'll see it in September, hopefully maybe earlier. So I'll definitely be looking to play in that in September. And then the core, when is that expected? When do you expect that to be ready?
That's not going to be ready probably until the fall.
Okay.
Because once we get this out, which should be in June, we'll be then going directly into getting the core developed. And because the core is a full line role playing game,
right?
We're going to go. Not only do we have to develop it, we have to play test it,
right?
Because we want to make sure it's play tested properly, and then it has to get into full scale layout. And laying out a role playing game can take a couple of months easy
to
do it right. So probably looking at early to mid fall, I'll say.
All right.
So, but if we have a beta, even if the beta is only in PDF, I'll make sure the beta is at ShireCon so you can take a peek at it.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, really looking forward to that. And by then I'm expecting, like, there's so much coming out right now that there's everyone seems to be kicking it into gear. Like I said, I'm gonna have Joseph Block on tomorrow, and he's kind of kicking out the second edition of Adventures Dark and Deep, and then Troll Lord Games has a whole bunch of stuff coming out. The whole practically the whole Gygax estate is coming out through Troll Lord Games over the next 6 months. I think I got like 12 books coming from them. I recently discovered Pinnacle's Savage Worlds. I mean, I've had it but I've never really dug into it before.
Right.
And now I'm like, I've played it once or twice and absolutely love the system. So looking to, take a deep dive into that as well. And then, all of the other stuff that's just buzzing around. I did that, that video the other day about the OGL, crisis of 2023, and basically who is the champion of that, at least in my opinion. But so many systems have been either, revitalized or are springing forth to fill in that vacuum. Because that's another thing that I've been really looking at is what is actually being run at conventions. And I think that that's the next step for the OSR, is to become the convention is the place where you're going to be introduced to the OSR, and that's something that I'm looking at. And that's something that I'm hoping that, all of these publishers out there start to think about the convention space as being the new space to push that diversity of gameplay out there.
No, definitely. I mean, I've looked at what conventions have, like North Texas, and you get to see what games are what people are running and what's popular.
Right.
And it is awesome. I mean, North Texas, you expect to see a lot of OSR, but you get to see that, like, Shadow Dark is huge.
Right.
DCC seems to be retreating a little bit, but it's new flavors of like MCC and Weird Frontiers, which I've played both. I mean, they're great con games.
Yes.
I tried running DCC back when it released with my regular group of miscreants, and they enjoyed the adventures, but they didn't enjoy the system because it was too swingy. But it works very well if you can blow all your points in one session, and it doesn't have repercussions. When you're the spellcaster who blows all your points, and now it's like, oh shit, Now I'm going to suck the rest of this campaign. That sucks.
Yeah.
So.
Don, same kind of idea. What's your take on running things at cons instead of, or in comparison to other ways of running games?
Well, I think the convention is the best way to run it to get your product out there.
Mm-hmm.
I also think a convention also I think you get a more broad exposure to different idea sets, different people, different age groups. Because I see it all the time. Like they'll have something like Gen Con run, or they'll have Gary Con run, and then your feed is full of people talking about. Well, like Tim Kask would tell me stories of, he'd run one of his games, and there'd be a bunch of teenagers in his games, and he just think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. Because you'd think that the type of games Tim runs, it would collect the mid 50 crowd and older. Right. But I think that's the nice thing about conventions, and I think that's where you can really shine, especially if you're a game publisher, because you can get your product out to people, more people, get more exposure to it, more eyes on it. So I think that's as far as if you want to get your game out there, that's the way to do it. Because how we play now is I have my own group. Erik has his group. You got your group. Mm-hmm. And we tend to be very tribal in the way we play. Mm-hmm. Sure, we're going to let new people in if new people show up interested in such. But I think just the game convention is just so unique because that's the time, even if a normal game, you just want to play a normal D&D game, first edition,
right?
You just got so many different people to pull from.
Right.
Well, your table winds up having its own culture, all right, its own defaults. Whereas I do most of my running of games these days at conventions, and for me it's great because it's a challenge because I don't know what my players are necessarily going to do. Right. I know what my group's going to do if I'm playing with them, right, or I'm running. I generally know how I can get if I want to show the lawyer to do something. I know how to feed him a piece of information that he'll bite onto. But it's different with a convention. And, even you've learned this too, I'm sure, writing a session for an adventure to be run at a convention, you kind of have to be flexible in how you're designing it. It's I got to be able to, if things aren't moving as quickly as I think they should, cut out. I always have a section that can either be cut out or a section that can be added
into. Yeah.
Because it's time. You can't. You don't do that in your home campaign because continuity. But it is at a game convention. You can do that. And I saw that Crusader had a question about.
Yeah, I'm going to put that up.
All right. So, quick answer is yes, very easily. It has AC. Now, the little bit more detailed answer, it has ascending, descending AC. It has the same pretty much factor or to hit tables as the rest of the OSR does. That doesn't change. There is a small change, and it might not make any difference to you, depending on how you want to. But characters in Blades and Sorcery are going to be rolling a D6 for their hit dice. All right. Which means that, and monsters are too, which means if you're running monsters from a Swords and Wizardry adventure as written, realize they're going to be a little bit tougher than the same monster being run strictly under the Blades and Sorcery rules. You can take off 1 hit point per hit die or leave them full. It's up to you. But it's the equivalent of running, it's not even as bad, running a basic adventure with AD&D rules. All right, the AC was off by 1.
Yeah,
it's your hit points are going to be slightly different. Yeah. Other than that, it should play the same.
So. Okay. Yeah. So back on convention spaces and everything, I think that it's now that conventions just seem to be spurring up now, so it's not like, we're beyond the 2 years of nothing, and now we're finally where it's like they're starting to prop up. And I think, at least this is my perception of it, is that there's more of them than there was in the past. because prior to COVID, they were disappearing as well. You know, they were kind of hard to get them going and up and running. And I think there are more smaller cons that are becoming medium-sized cons, you know, than there was prior to that. Now, Erik, you're probably more versed in that than I am, because I didn't start going back to cons or doing that kind of like looking at it until like 2017, 18-ish or so.
Okay.
So
yeah, I started going. I went to 2 cons my whole lifetime before 2014. I went to a convention at Columbia in my early college days, and I went to Gen Con in '94. I think it was the 25th anniversary or something like that. So North Texas in 2014, and then 2016 was my first Gary Con, and Game Hole, and then Total Con, Shire Con. There was a point before COVID that I was trying, not necessarily succeeding, but I was trying to keep an active list of gaming cons that had OSR tracks. But the problem is there wasn't an easy way to find it. It really meant you had to go into a tabletop and literally scroll through their events looking for the ones that had old school games in it. I think that COVID did away with any convention that was being poorly run. There were, I mean, GaryCon came close to probably not returning if they hadn't, you know. Listen, if you were going in 2020, and I wasn't going in 2020 even before it, just because I was Gary Conned out after my prior year. It was just too crowded. I needed to take a year off. COVID killed a lot of cons because a lot of cons had money that could not be returned because nobody expected COVID. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody expected COVID to shut down the world. And conventions like North Texas were held in 2020 for locals only because they were paying for the space anyway. They weren't going to get the money back. So they still held a local con. I think they had like 75 attendees. But for a lot of these conventions, that was the year they weren't going to come back from. And some of them didn't even come back in 2021. And then when they did come back, for a lot of them, depending on the state, it was the mask, and a lot of people didn't want to go if they were going to be masked. So we finally gotten to the time where if you have a convention that you like going to, and it's still there, enjoy it, because if it's still there after all this crap, it's probably sticking around. It probably has legs. But COVID did a hell of a job on some probably decent conventions that just didn't have deep enough pockets to be able to survive. A lot for folks don't realize this. Not every convention is a GaryCon or a Game Hole, which makes a profit and has money put aside for the following year, and has a payroll and all this stuff, or a Gen Con, which I don't know, probably puts a significant percentage into Indianapolis's coffers every year. Most of them are small to medium, like TotalCon in North Texas. And they, if they have a really bad year, they might not have the next year. So if you enjoy them, show them and shopping them. I mean, that's what I do. Especially the ones I can drive to. Rach knows the truth. If I can drive, it's like I don't have to worry about checking luggage. Oh, awesome! I can buy stuff that's fragile. I don't have to worry about it being shoved into the overhead compartment and breaking. So,
not having airfare is another big plus, and that's that's the other thing. I'm very much like you. I mean, I'm looking at my local cons, and right now I have like 4 or 5 cons that I could say, I could go there every year. You know, they're all within 4 hours driving distance. They're never more than maybe a 3-night stay, and really only 2 of them are night stays, like Philadelphia and Rising Phoenix and Massachusetts. Those are the only 2 that I really have to, book a hotel room for 3 nights a piece, and the rest are all local. I mean, ShireCon is an hour away, and then I have a tiny con that I go to that's 10 minutes away. It's my own town,
Really?
Yeah. There's one, James Baird Park up in, I don't know, I guess it's in LaGrangeville. So it's next to Pleasant, or it's considered Pleasant Valley or whatever, which is my town.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right.
It's like a golf course, but they have these little pavilions out in the thing. I mean, there's maybe 30 people going to this thing. It's tiny. It's called AutoCon. It's like Otto Van Bismarck. I'm like, it's such a weird, like, disconnected thing. I was like, if the guy changed the name of his con, it would probably grow, because it's kind of like a weird disconnect to it. But, it's like I said, it's 10 minutes away from my house, so I can't complain. And it's tiny. It's awesome. Like, 30 people. You're running. There's maybe 4 game sessions going on throughout the one day of the con. I don't know if he intends to actually grow it beyond that, but it's so close. How do you not go? But the other ones are like my go-tos. It's like, now Philadelphia, I'm locked in, and it's like, all right, I'll try to make that every single year. And just wish January is such an iffy month, Oh,
weather-wise, yeah.
Weather-wise, it's such an iffy month. Yeah, you never freaking know what you're going to face in January.
Yeah, as I said, TotalCon in February, it's always like, oh, please don't snow, please don't snow, please don't snow.
Yeah, it's like, they forget we're in the Northeast or something. I don't know what it is, what that is. But yeah, I think the cons are really important for, people in general to get out to and to see. And maybe someday down in the future, I could get to, a Gary Con or something like that, and that'll probably be a one-shot and done, never again, like a bucket list kind of thing.
It's certainly a bucket list. The issue with Gary Con is that you got to rent a car. If you're coming from the Northeast, you got to rent a car if you're flying in. If you do game hole, you fly into Madison and the hotel shuttle picks you up. It's not an issue. And same thing for North Texas. You fly into Dallas and the hotel shuttle picks you up. And I found it at Dallas, and I'm going to laugh about this, is that I don't drive down in Texas. I've been going now since 2014. And every year somebody, at least one person or one couple, has grabbed me and Rach and said, "Hey, we're going out for food. Join us. You're getting barbecue. You're getting chili." Last year, Rach and I went out with Joe Block, and we got chili on delicious chili on Sunday. Yeah. So I it's like, and that's the other thing, folks. If you go to a convention, realize you're with other gamers. You're with your people. Yeah. All right, and you're gonna go, "Oh, I think do I know you from online?" Listen, introduce yourself, make friends with people, make that connection, because that's why I go to conventions. I go to conventions to make connections with people that I know online or know me online from my videos, my blog. Well, I was at Game Hole a couple of years ago before COVID, and I'm online for breakfast. Rach and I at the little breakfast buffet they had in the hotel. And I'm talking with Rach, and from 15 feet away, I hear, "Do I hear Tenkar?" from the podcast. And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, I knew that voice, that New York accent. I'm like, okay. Yeah. But people, that's what conventions are about. That's I'm there for the people. The games are secondary. The people are the primary reason why I'm there.
So once Blades and Sorcery is out, and that it's out there in the wild, do you anticipate, like, what is, your anticipation for going to a con and you're just walking by some random table and you see your game being run? I mean, like, what is that? I mean, have you seen Continual Light, being run at a convention prior to this?
I've seen Swords of Wizardry Light be run at conventions prior to this, which is a beautiful thing. People that weren't associated with Frog God Games, because, heck, I saw Bill Webb runs Bill Webb, OSR, whatever he runs.
Yeah.
But it used to be when he would run it with Swords and Wizardry Light in his hands and refer to it.
Yeah.
Which was a beautiful thing to see. But one thing I enjoyed, I don't know if you noticed it at the table at ShireCon, the player that was sitting directly to my right had a homebound copy of Continual Light.
That's right. Yeah. He had the binder. He had like a freaking binder. It was like,
it's that when you see your work out there in the wild, and he's talking about his home campaign, that's what he ran it with.
yeah.
That makes you feel really, really special.
Right.
It really does, and it's your child out there, and people are playing with it, and it's being used.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy with that.
Don, same question. Have you seen your games out there in the wild, like at a convention?
No, I have not, because I haven't been to many conventions in the last few years. Just because of health issues and other issues that revolve around. But, I'm looking forward to getting out there more this fall into some conventions out there, and also this coming year, because I think it's going to be great to be able to see things like Blazing Sorcery out on a table being played. My ego will definitely take over, and I'll probably definitely stop to watch.
You'd be like undercover boss. Do you mind if I sit in on this game? And then you spring it on to him afterwards, saying, "Hey, I wrote that." It's I mean, and plus you said you're in Michigan, right? So, so Massachusetts is probably closer for you than well, maybe not actually, than Philadelphia. Well, you said Philadelphia is what, like a 6-hour drive for you?
About a 9.
Oh, 9.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't consider that a one-day trip anymore. It's like
it's a one-day drive. I mean, for us.
But anyway, so I mean that'll be a lot of fun. I'll tell you one thing. I will certainly look to run it at a con. I'll probably run it at Rising Phoenix in 2025. That'll be in April.
Yep. Well, the more people that run it, the better feedback they can give us, and the more feedback we get, the better, so we can make sure that expansions or whatnot can get better to what the public wants.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm assuming that you'll have some kind of like a third-party licensing writing agreement with it.
Well, there's going to be we have our own OGL, the Wizard Tower 1.5 going right now, so people can make and operate underneath the OGL the Wizard Tower OGL. So yeah, there'll be a means for people to create and to do their own stuff underneath it.
All right, that'll be great. Yeah, because that's another big selling point.
Oh yeah,
is look at all the look at Shadow Dark. I just was focusing on it the other day, and there's so much third-party stuff coming out on that it's just amazing stuff. Like Tom Wilson is working on even more stuff for it, and others as well, and I think that's going to give that game system real legs, and for Blade and Sorcery to have that same kind of openness to have third party just print out for it. I know it's very cliche when they say, a rising tides, rise all ships, or however they say it, but that really does push a game system when other people can create for it.
Yes.
Because it just gets it out there. I mean, 5e understands that because they were really floated by the original OGL. I mean, they that really did drive it through and beyond what it would have been a lull sometime around 2017, 18 or so. I mean, they benefited from, COVID and all of that, but they really benefited from all of the third-party content that was helping them keep it afloat and keep it in the mind's eye.
Kept the system alive. But
yes.
Now you do remember that initially there was no OGL for the 5.0 system.
Right.
But initially they gave you the basic set because they thought, this is what annoys me about the talking heads at WotC, they thought that people only want an SRD so they can play for free. They don't want to buy the rules. So we'll give them a basic set and that'll make them happy. And nobody cared about their basic rules. People wanted an SRD because they knew they wanted quality work from quality third-party publishers to enhance their game. And when they finally got the OGL out, that's when 5e took off.
Right.
That's when companies like Frog God and Kobold and the rest started putting out quality 5e material.
Right.
So when they tried to do away with the OGL, oh God.
Yeah.
Cutting off your nose to spite your face. It was just a bad choice.
Yeah. So, all right. And let's get to any new comments. Captain Frank Falkenstein was fun. I missed that. Oh, I see what he's saying. That was a reference to Autocon. Yeah. All right. That was, yeah. Like I said, it's a very weird name for, a con that's, there's not even like a lot of wargaming or anything like that. And, I have to get into the history. I have to ask the person what the history of that whole thing was. But let's see, what else were we going to wrap up? So upcoming conventions. I mean, we've been talking about conventions. So, So Erik, what are your upcoming conventions?
Well, my next big convention that I'll be showing up at is going to be North Texas RPG Con, which is in 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, something like that. Early June. I've gone every year since 2014, except for the year of COVID. I'm a New Yorker, and Dallas is like my second home because of the convention. It really, everybody there is so awesome and so great. And I think I'm only, at the moment, I've only registered for one game. That is Glenn Hallstrom running Gangbusters. And I'm in one panel with the Stewarts. We're going to be talking about podcasts and YouTube channels. And other than that, I'm looking to do pickup gaming and hang out at the bar, walk around and socialize. Oh, and I do live streams every night, of course, because that's the kind of idiot I am. And the Thursday night live stream is going to be a whiskey tasting. It has been
nice
the last couple of years. So we do a whiskey tasting in the large conference hall. Hopefully Chris, who brings the whiskey. Last year he did German whiskeys. And if anybody knows whiskeys in Germany, you could put your math together and realize that Germany doesn't make whiskey. So there's a reason for it. They all tasted like shit. But he's promised to have better whiskeys on call for this tasting. And it's always a blast. It's a lot of fun. And I try to do live streams from the main conference room, the main convention room, like the exhibit hall, because that way you get like random people walking by that are known by people. I can grab like Jeff Talanian and whoever else and grab them for a few minutes on a video. So that's the next on the plate.
Yeah, that's something I'm going to want to talk to you about. Is because I don't even know what kind of equipment is best to use for live streaming from a thing. It's like I bust out the iPad, at late at night, and I do a live stream because that's the only way that I know how to do it. But that's one thing I haven't done is done interviews or anything like that at a convention yet. So that's something that I probably look to to do as well, is to catch some especially at Page, Philadelphia area Game Con. I definitely want to do it there because there's so many people going there. Number one,
Yep.
and number two, I haven't bogged myself down with running too many games, which I did at Rising Phoenix. That was certainly a huge learning curve. I ran 5 different game systems, 5 different sessions, plus I played in 3 other sessions.
Oh,
so
geez.
it's like I had something like 30 plus hours of gaming in 2.5 days, and left virtually no room for anything else. And I was practically brain dead by Sunday morning. I was like, all right, I'm done. But certainly something I want to do more so at conventions is some more live streaming. Don, how about you? What's your next convention or first convention in a while to get to?
Well, we're putting on a convention in Battle Creek called WizardCon.
WizardCon, yeah.
Yep, that is the 19th, 20th, and 21st of July. We're supposed to meet this week to finalize the location. The location has been finalized for a while, but we had an issue come up. Eric knows about this issue. Sadly, we had a individual from another game company reach out to our venue and try to disrupt the convention, is what they tried to do. And they were very close to succeeding. So we had to meet with them several times. We had to provide more information. We had to, we're doing the final this week. It's been finalized, but it'll go up on their website at the Kellogg Arena in Battle Creek this week. And our tabletop events page will go fully live. People will be able to sign up for events and such, but we already have a ton of vendors in the back end wanting space. And we got, people like Tim Kask and Jim Wampler and Heidi Gygax and her husband are coming. We have, who don't we have coming? We got creator of Top Secret coming.
Mm-hmm.
Rasmussen.
Yep, Rasmussen. He's going to be there. We've got Jeff D coming.
Wow.
So those are all going to be. It's going to be a blast.
And that's the 19th through 19, 20, 21 of July.
19, 20, and 21st July. Yeah.
I think I just signed up for a virtual con for exactly that same weekend. There was a Savage Worlds virtual con for I think exactly that same weekend. But maybe next year.
Sure.
In its second year, that'll be a possibility. Because I don't think that's that much of a haul for me. That's probably like 9 or 10 hour.
Yeah, I think I think I mapped it out. I'll be there, but I think I mapped it out when I was like, well, I could cut out 3 hours by starting from the Poconos. I could just go.
Yeah, so I'll definitely check it out and see if it's possible. But the summer times, even though I'm retired too, but the summer times is sometimes I like to, I try to make up for being retired by working during the summer months in the city in Manhattan. So it's
a really weird lull. I mean, it's right after Gen Con. It's that strange 3-week lull that not a lot of conventions are going on. That's why we grabbed it, just because it was just an opportune time to snag onto something before school starts and people have to juggle that and all of that. So
St. Cuthbert wants to meet you at
Con on the Cob. I've heard a lot of Con on the Cob, and it used to when I was doing Game Hall, it was always on the same weekend as Game Hall.
Yeah,
so because I was getting to go to Game Hall on the company dime for Frog God, so they gave Rich and I a hotel room and our badges, so you kind of couldn't say no.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
but I could check into Con on the Cob. I will check into it.
Or you can come to ShireCon in Connecticut, and
I'll be there.
And
we'll
all be there.
Yeah, and I'll be at TotalCon next year, and Page. So but if you, I'm not guaranteeing Con on the Cob, but I have looked into it. It looks interesting, but I will see.
Yeah.
Yeah, even retired, your life isn't your own. Your family still calls you.
Yeah, it's a, there's only there's only so many that you can go to, and there, like I said, there's so many that are propping up right now,
Yep.
sprouting up right now. That it's like, wow, I can't go to one every 2 months. It's
Well, you could. It just might have repercussions.
yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So let's summarize. So we have Blades and Sorcery, Blight coming out, or the initial coming out sometime soon, right? Possibly
it'll
by
be in
June.
June.
Possibly by June. So that's going to be just in time to actually start really digging into it, and and probably running it by well, certainly by ShireCon. We'll be ready to test it out and kick the tires on it and see how it's going and everything. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then the full version or the expanded version of it, the core for it will be in the fall, which is still in time for Christmas and in time for Philadelphia Game Expo too. So might be able to see it there and run it there and everything. So I'll get you to sign my copy of it when we get there in January. So hey, it was really great having you guys on, and welcome anytime. Anytime you want to, we have to break that myth that the OSR don't come together and talk to each other. It's like another weird thing to come out of our sphere.
It's probably the same people that like to go, the OSR is not a community, it's a movement.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if you don't want to be part of the community that's in the OSR, you don't have to be, but we're very happy to be in that community.
Yeah, it's a I get what they're saying because they think that if you don't call it a community, it can't be broken, or infiltrated or whatever. The fact, and then you get the flip side where they say, if there's no head of it, then you can't infiltrate it. There's nothing to destroy. You can't destroy it. So it's like you get the two extremes on the opposite sides, and they both kind of come to the same conclusion that it's not something that you can very easily label, because and it's fine that it has multiple different definitions. I've had people say, I was like, the only thing that's common is the old school part of it. What you do with the final R is where the real difference comes to.
Well, wasn't the old saying is like, I know porn when I see it. I know the OSR when I see it.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it. I know it when I see it, and I know what isn't it. And I'm not going to get into the arguments of a DCC RPG is an OSR. Okay. I look at it and I see OSR. You don't see it. You see it differently. That's fine. That's how it is. So
so North Texas is on the bucket list. It could be, if someday in the future I end up in Florida or whatever, in my true retirement, then North Texas is probably real close then. So that's probably not a problem. I think on my bucket list is going to be Gary Con. I mean, that'll be a bucket list thing. I'll do it once in my lifetime and then never again. Okay, so we are wrong. So I will go back to here. So, once again, thank you, Erik and Dawn, for coming on, and it was a pleasure having you here. And I will keep up and touch bases with you as Blades and Sorcery continues its process. I definitely will love to have both you on, and Tom, if Tom wants to join in as well, and we can talk about that and see how it's going once it gets through its play testing and its release there, and And we will finish off with this last comment. And thank you, St. Cuthbert, and others who have popped in during the time. And, thanks for joining. And looking forward to seeing all of you. Eventually, Don will like to meet you in person. So hopefully we'll run across a convention.
One day.
both at, and that'll be great. Maybe it will be at your con. Probably not this year, but I will certainly plan for it the following year. And Erik, I will be seeing you in September at least. So looking forward to that. And with that, everyone, thanks for joining. And anything last you guys want to say?
I'm good.
No, folks, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for listening to Three Old Guys.
Yes. All right.